Hey, welcome to episode 143 of Awkwardly Awesome Podcast. I'm your host, Jason Freeman, and today I'm thinking about retirement. Specifically that I don't want to just flick the pen. Specifically, that I don't want to be bored and have nothing to do when I retire. And my next guest, my guest today, who's having an amazing retirement and finding so much to do and new talents to develop. So back with more in a sec.
Today's guest, Gary Pederson.
Well, welcome back. Let me tell you a little about Gary. After a 44-year teaching career in Sioux Falls, where Gary started well over 2,000, that's amazing, students along the path of performing music, while also performing himself with the South Dakota Symphony and being band chair for the South Dakota Music Educators Association. Gary has chosen to spend his retirement expanding upon his long list of achievements instead of hanging his hat on them. Some aspects, like taking Arthur, his dog, on strolls around town with pit stops at some of Sioux Falls' many coffee shops, seem pretty expected. Then there's also the part of him that he likes to explore small Midwest towns and practice his photography. But the part that really impresses me is his tremendous, almost natural ability to paint and illustrate, from fine arts to New York or cowboy illustrations, watercolor drawing entries to calculated brush strokes on large canvases. Gary Pederson is living proof that sometimes you need to slow down life's responsibilities in order to speed up your life's passion and ambition. Please help me welcome Gary Pederson. Hey Gary, welcome to Awkwardly Awesome Podcast.
Thank you, Jason.
So I like to start early in life with my guests. When you were 7 years old, if I had known you and asked you what you wanted to be when you grew up, what would you have said?
Oh, when I was 7, I probably would have wanted to be a cowboy. I grew up on a farm in northeast South Dakota, and though I was on a farm, we didn't have horses to ride along, and I really wanted a horse. So at 7, I was probably hoping I could be a cowboy when I grew up.
So aside from riding a horse, what did you like about being a cowboy? The idea.
Yeah, I've always liked being outdoors. And so since then, although I don't ride horse, I've done some backpacking and camping and outdoor things that way, and I always enjoy those. In fact, I met Anne, my wife, at a backpacking camp out in Colorado.
Oh, wow! So you got to be outdoors, which you love, and me, your wife, at the same time. That's
right. Yep, we're the result of a camp romance.
That sounds very fun. How did a love for music enter your life?
Well, my mom was a good piano player. In fact, she was a piano teacher when I was young. She had several students either at her home or in small towns around our farm. So she got us started on piano and in really encouraged us to do band as well. So I give credit to my mom for my musical interest initially anyway.
How did you go from being interested in music and in band to being I want to make this a career?
Um, well, I kept doing a little more and more with it. I mean, I started on piano. I started on trumpet in elementary school and switched to tuba in high school and went to Bible camp and fell in love with guitar playing and learned guitar starting in middle school and all that. But I didn't really have the confidence until my senior year in high school when I finally, yes, made it into all-state band. And for me at least, that was my yes, I'm good enough to go give this a try. So
First of all, why the switch from trumpet to tuba? Or did I say that wrong?
You did. No, that's correct. I was sitting right in the middle of 22 trumpet players in our middle school band. And our band director had not done a good job of controlling balanced instrumentation. We had
Which is important.
22 trumpets, one trombone, and no baritones or tubas. So one day my friend sitting next to me and I said, we're not doing the band much good here. Let's go see if the band director will let us switch to tuba. So, because we know the band needed tubas and thought that sounded like fun.
What was the experience of being in all-state like?
Um, it was a little scary for me because all of a sudden I was in what felt like almost over my head with way better musicians than I was used to playing with. But the excitement was obviously it didn't scare me away from it. It made me think, yep, this is what I want to do. So
How during all-state, how did you control like you would be, I imagine, pretty excited and pretty nervous.
yeah. Well, I think that's one of the nice things about band is rarely are you doing it all by yourself. There were probably it was a big band, so there were probably 8 tuba players, and I was not the first chair, so I didn't have any solos or anything like that. I could kind of lean on the people around me, and if there's something I felt like I couldn't play quite up to standard, I would let others take that and then jump back in. So there's safety in numbers when you're playing in a big band.
There's a lot of talk about obviously the camaraderie of sports teams, football, basketball, whatever. But could you talk a little about the camaraderie that forms in a band?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, in a lot of ways it's the same, but I've always thought the big difference is that in most sports, most of the players are sitting on the bench and yes, cheering on their teammates and all that. But in basketball, there's only 5 out there playing at a time. And
Wow.
in band or in pretty much any musical ensemble, everybody's playing almost all the time.
I mean that idea that tourism has always been in front of my face, but I've never thought about that.
Uh,
That ban allows everyone to participate.
band allows everyone to participate. Yep. And like I said, even though the goal is to have everybody playing every note all the time, it allows for some diversity in abilities there. If something's just too hard for you and you know somebody else will cover it, you can kind of lean on them and let them play it, and then you jump back in when you know you can be of a benefit to the group. So not only is everybody participating, but it can handle various levels of ability as well.
Well, fascinating, really fascinating. So, so you had a great all-state band experience, but then but did you still want to be a cowboy at this point?
No, I had given up. I had given up cowboy and farmer. In high school, along with band, we had a great kind of industrial arts program. You could spend the last 2 hours of every day doing carpentry or auto shop or drafting though I took a lot of those, by my junior senior year I was concentrating mostly on drafting and architectural drafting, designing houses and rooms and all that kind of stuff. And of
So
course,
did you say you had this for 4 years?
I took some kind of industrial arts course for my sophomore, junior, and senior year. Now, I didn't have 4 years of architectural drafting. I think I had one semester.
But 2 hours a day, that's a lot of time over 3 years.
I know it. I know it.
Wow.
So, and even though I enjoyed drafting, and after doing it it might have not been 2 hours, it might have been an hour and a half or something like that. After doing that for an hour and a half a day, 5 days a week, I started to get a little bit tired of it and said, oh, if I get tired of this doing it for 1.5 hours a day, what am I going to do if I'm doing it for 8 hours? So that was kind of my decision I think I need to do the music route, not the architect drafting route.
So were those the only two careers you were debating between?
By that time in high school, it was kind of down to those two. Yep.
Then I'm curious, what is it like in college and preparing to, like, once you're out of school, you're going to be teaching this. You're going to, from the classroom, to teaching a whole bunch of kids how to play instruments together.
Yes.
Is that easy peasy? No problem.
Oh, no. I had a horrible first year of teaching. I feel so sorry for my students my first year. I mean, I got through it all right, and I probably wasn't as bad as in my head I think it is. But even student teaching, you think that's where you would learn it or get. But I student taught at the time in Watertown, and the band director had been there for ages and had a really good program and had a really good handle on everything. So student teachers could just step in and not run into much problems there.
So do you kind of think your first year of teaching would be like Watertown?
So I thought it would be like Watertown.
But it was not quite like Watertown.
It's a lot tougher when you're the only one and you got to convince students to be on board with you and you're not entirely sure yourself. And
So what 3 pieces of advice would you give a first year teacher?
Um, don't one is to don't just try to copy other teachers. I would say, oh, here's a successful teacher. Maybe that's exactly how I should teach. I mean, I think it's great to observe other teachers and learn from them, but you kind of got to come up with your own method and style and so forth. Secondly, don't hesitate to ask for help. I was not good about asking for help my first couple years. I would just say, "Oh, I should be able to figure this out by myself," and I'm embarrassed to go talk to somebody else and say, "I'm having a hard time with this." So, don't hesitate to get advice, and don't be afraid to let students realize how much you are enjoying what you're doing. Um, I think,
Could you say more about that?
well, I think at least for me, first year, I really felt like I got to be the one who, I got to show my leadership skills in a in a grumpy, overhand sort of way.
And students really like that style, huh?
Yeah, yeah, I bet you can speak from experience. You loved all your teachers that were grumpy and I don't want, no, demanding isn't a bad word, but grumpy is.
Speaking of, I mean, we have a lot to cover, so we can't spend all day on. But few more questions. So speaking of demanding, when a student first picks up an instrument, how do you help them move from no way will I be able to do this, let alone do it well, to doing the practice and doing all the work and failing, and
Yeah.
how do you move them along?
Well, I always try to break it down into small steps. We do a lot of practicing on just the mouthpiece first, so they don't have to worry about note reading and they don't have to worry about fingerings and they don't have to. All they have to worry about is getting a sound out of the mouthpiece, and then we can worry about holding the instrument and all those things separately, and we add that to the mouthpiece, and maybe don't read any notes yet for a while and so forth. So if you break it down into steps, it's not quite as daunting.
I can see myself not being patient with that at all. Like Mr. Peterson starting us off just with the mouthpiece. I signed up to play an instrument. How do you help students get through the just impatience?
The impatience, yeah. I break the lesson itself down so that we don't spend a half hour just on the mouthpiece. But within that lesson, we do mouthpiece separate, we do instrument holding separate. And yes, at the end, we'll probably play two notes on the whole instrument itself. So at least within that first lesson, they get, this is what we're going for. But I've spent 25 of the 30 minutes with little pieces of it, and just at the very end, then give them a taste of what it's going to be like with the whole instrument.
This is such a lesson about anything new we're doing, because it's so tempting to try to do it all at once, and when it doesn't work, to say, I'm not good at that.
Yes. Yep. And celebrate the little steps. I still get excited the first time the kid can play hot cross buns, And boy, have I heard hot cross buns a lot of times.
This is a side question. As a teacher for how many years? 30 what?
44 years of teaching.
How do you deal with that personally? Like hearing hot cross buns tens of thousands of times. How do you keep interested in that?
Well, the interest isn't in hot cross buns, of course. The interest is in the light bulb that goes on in the kid's head when they finally can do it. That's where the excitement, that's where the satisfaction is.
Sweet. When you think back on your career, what are a few highlights that just make you smile with joy?
Oh boy. You know, because I didn't spend a lot of time, I spent a dozen years at high school, but I think that's where you do the sort of, oh, the highlight of my career was when I got to take the band to so and so and we took first place in such and such a contest and that. Um, having spent most of my time in elementary and middle school, um, I don't look back and think, these two or three or one or two things are really highlights for me. I just think back at those small millions of small steps along the way that brought me a sense of accomplishment. I I joke. People often say, "Oh, you're an elementary band director. You know, you must be a saint, or there's a place in heaven for you, or whatever about that." But I tell them, "Oh no, elementary band directing is really pretty satisfying. It's kind of like vacuuming. You can really tell where you've been. You know, the results can be phenomenal in just a week or two, as opposed to high school or college where it might take quite a while to get real noticeable change." So
That must be something to the first time a student kind of starts to get it and feels great.
yep.
Oh, how does learning to play an instrument help students in other areas of their life? I'm always interested in how things cross over and inform each other.
Yeah, and I don't know. I'm sure there are ways in which, reading music helps in deciphering symbols and reading text and all those kinds of things. But, I think probably the thing that I focused on or saw the most is how important drill and practice, daily going over something. There's a sense in which we think, oh, I've learned that. Now I don't need to do that anymore.
I learned that now I don't need to do it anymore.
Yeah, and that's so not true in music. I mean, you've got to go back and each day or every other day or whatever your situation allows, go back and do a lot of what you did the last time you practiced, maybe with extra millimeter more of accomplishment, but it's such a cyclical, go back, do it again, gain a little bit, go back, do it again, maybe gain a little bit, for days and days, not gain at all, and then hit a plateau where you actually notice some improvement there. The need for daily drill and practice, as opposed to, oh, I learned this, I don't need to do it anymore, is, I think, one of the best lessons we teach.
Phenomenal, and it really gets a student in the action of learning a discipline rather than just thinking about learning a discipline.
Say that again.
And then that drill and practice really gets a student in the mindset of physically learning a discipline instead of just
Yeah.
thinking about learning a discipline.
Yes. Yes. It's discipline in action.
Discipline in action. So then you retired. Was that only last year, or was that
That
2
was
years
only
ago?
last year. So, 13 months ago, I guess.
So what was it like waking up the first day of school this fall and going, "Oh, I don't have to go"?
Well, so of course, for a teacher, the first day of I don't have to go doesn't come until September or late August or mid-August. Um, so we have that little summer buffer time that's not really like other summers, because most summers I'm thinking about what's coming up in the fall and what have I got to do and da, 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 da. So even last summer was less so that way, but the real difference comes once the buses start rolling and the kids are going back and you're not having to do that anymore. Or yeah, so.
And does that difference feel nice to you, or how does that difference
Oh
feel?
yeah, it does. It does. I have discovered this year that I was more ready to retire than I realized.
Mm.
S-
That's great too.
Oh yeah, I haven't spent any time this year saying, "Oh, did I do it at the right time?" Was it? Even though I've done some substitute teaching this year, I've subbed probably on average of almost 1 day a week or 3 days a month or something like that. But that's really different than doing it all the time and having to do all the prep and the follow up and all that.
So, so then suddenly you have at least 4 days a week available to you to do whatever you want that you didn't have before. How do you handle that?
Um, I guess I had thought ahead about what kinds of things I want to be able to do. Things you mentioned, I want the freedom to get up and walk my dog Arthur downtown in the morning for coffee when I feel like it, and come back and do a little, um, keep the house in better shape than before. And I had had this goal. I'd been working on some art projects off and on for the last few years. There's Arthur. And I really wanted to pursue that more. So that's been fun this year.
So tell us a little bit about Arthur.
Arthur is a standard poodle, 3 years old. Not the first poodle we've had. We had Jack before, and a golden doodle, Byron. Wow, we've had a number of dogs, but he's our second poodle, and I used to think, oh, poodle, I don't want to walk one of those fluffy things. But he's a great dog. Um, and we really like the non-shedding nature of them. They've got great personality. He's the easiest dog I've ever had to train. Um, just to he's so mellow when I take him into places, coffee shops, so forth. He's just really good. So
How did you start painting Arthur?
painting Arthur. Well, so I mentioned we had these two dogs before, Jack, and there's Arthur, Jack and Byron. Well, several years ago, I took on my New Year's resolution was to draw or paint a picture a day. It was just my discipline.
Okay. So you're still teaching.
I'm still teaching.
In your New Year's resolution, on top of teaching. So let's back up. Have you been interested in drawing since high school or since before
Well,
that?
like I said, in high school, I did some mechanical drafting and drawing and so forth. And though that's not quite the same, you still learn about 2-point perspective and vanishing points and all that you need when you're drawing buildings. So I was starting to get the idea then. But it's really been in the last 15, 20 years, now that sounds like quite a while, that I've been doing little sketches while we travel.
So how did you get this notion that I want to do little sketches while we travel? Well, you and Ann travel.
I think I was selected to go with a group of teachers to the country of Turkey about 15 years ago. And I had seen, I don't remember where, it was just on the web or whatever. I had seen that people do these things called illustrated travel journals. And instead of taking pictures, and they draw pictures of wherever they've been. And I thought, if I could do that, that would be such a neat memento for after. There's a one. So that trip to Turkey, I made the commitment to take along a sketchbook and document that trip as a reflections, sketches, memories, places we went, all that. And that is what kind of got me hooked, so that now whenever Ann and I travel, that's when we travel down in Nebraska. Have you been there, Jason?
I haven't been to Carhenge.
To Carhenge, yes. Well, we love to just drive to silly places nearby and far. And Ann takes pictures, although I do some too. And then I put them into a sketchbook and write a little bit about where we were so that we've got a memory of it. And they're just great fun to go back to and reminisce, remember how the trip was, share it with others. I think friends that want to know about our trip seem to much more enjoy paging through a book of sketches than sitting through a slide presentation of a bunch of your trip. So that's where I got started. Oh, and you were asking about drawing Arthur. So I did this the year that I was trying to do a sketch a day. You run out of things to draw. So I thought, what am I going to draw today? And sometimes I'd look in the web and see what important things happened today. And sometimes I'd just look around the room, and our dog Jack was sitting there. And I thought, oh, let's see, I could draw Jack in a big cardboard box, and I'd call it Jack in the Box. Wouldn't that be silly? And that got me started on this whole book called Jack in the Box that had pictures of Jack in the Box, Jack and the Fox, Jack and...
You said Jack and the Fox?
Yeah, because I would pick a famous saying and then something else that rhymes with it. So I'd draw a picture of Jack and the Beanstalk, only it would be my dog, Jack, looking up a beanstalk. And then the next page would be Jack and the Clean Sock. how Jack liked to grab clean socks out of the laundry basket and run around with them. So it was a whole book like that.
That sounds really fun.
It was a cool project and got lots of great encouragement from it. I even got it self-published on Amazon. You can still go to Amazon and look up Gary Pederson, Jack in the Box, and the book is still available for sale on there.
Go to Amazon and look up Gary Pederson, Jack in the Box.
Yep. So then my wife said, you can't do just a book about Jack. You got to do one about Byron too. So I got thinking, what in the world do I do for Byron? And I thought, I'm a band director. Byron has got to do something with band and instruments. How do I do this and still keep it in? I wanted to keep it in that silly, rhymey sort of kids' book style. So the book was titled Byron Likes the Siren. And it's how Byron likes playing one of those siren horns. But the band director tells him he can't just play the siren. He has to pick out another instrument. So he goes through all these different band instruments, trying to find the one that he likes the best. And he ends up finding the slide trombone because it sounds a lot like the siren. And so it's a whole book. And in that book, I used all the other characters were dogs that belonged to or lived with friends of ours. So Janet and Ross's dog was in there. And our friends Phil and Laura's dog was in there and so forth. So.
How did I not know it? That's
I'll have to send these to you.
Is Byron's
Likes
book
the Siren is also available on Amazon.
Wow. Does Arthur have a book yet?
Well, sort of. Arthur, I haven't come up with a full-fledged book idea for Arthur. So I did for my wife for Christmas. I illustrated this one, which is more Arthur's advice for happy living or something like that. But it's little sketches about how Arthur, things that Arthur likes to do or lessons we can learn from Arthur.
I want to get the overlay off for a second. Be grateful for every chance to go on a walk.
Yeah. Now this was also my first try at illustrating not on pen and watercolor, but on the iPad itself. So these are all iPad illustrations.
These are iPad. Wow. Dogs would never lay a little guilt trip on the owners, would they?
No, never.
That went so great. Develop your bit bark. And dogs always want to be quiet and just.
Yeah, no. In fact, Arthur, when he was young, even when he was a pup, he had this deep, low bark. So he developed with us at least a reputation of being little big bark.
Little big bark. So then you've been illustrating and first of all, why did you give yourself such a challenge of drawing like every day for you?
Why? I think that goes back to that discipline thing. I know that unless you practice it, you're not going to get any better at it. And so just like the one needs the discipline to practice an instrument, I knew I would get better at drawing if I just did it every day.
It's inspiring. and then and then you go from drawing, and the drawings are wonderful, but then suddenly, how did you get into
Painting.
painting?
Well,
Amazing paintings.
well, it that is more of a retirement thing. You know, when I was, these are, like you saw, these are these little illustrated. This is a cool book here, Jason. Not only can you go page by page, but it
Oh my
folds
God.
out into a full trip through. That's one of our Ann's and my little trips around South Dakota. But I had done,
You're so creative.
I've done a fair amount of watercolor painting, but just in a kind of an unsophisticated way, just enough to add color to my travel journals. But then I've been inspired, probably especially by Barbara Sparks, who got me excited about joining the Great Plains Watercolor Society, a local group that just encourages each other and meets together to do watercolor painting, to try some more structured watercolor approach. And so I took a couple of online courses from Barbara and have done a couple of others from other teachers, just to expand my knowledge beyond adding a little color to sketches in my travel journals, which I still do and I still love doing.
So this, I'm hearing your words, but this isn't totally making sense yet, because you went from adding a little color in your photo journals to this.
Okay.
How? How?
This one, here's the other thing. I managed to get into oil painting class. Actually, this is acrylic, but an oil painting class at Augustana, and still teaching at Augie, so I can audit classes there. And Scott Parsons, the painting teacher there, allowed me to join his class. And so one of the projects in that class was to study famous artists or some of their works and come up with something that was inspired by them, but somewhat your own too. And I had always loved the Nighthawk. That's the Edward Hopper painting with the people in the cafe storefront, but it's in the nighttime and it's all dark and you can only see in there, and it's a man and a woman, not me and my dog. But I thought, it'd be kind of cool to take that, place it at one of the coffee places I go to, Cafea downtown, and then in the background, instead of just using the Sioux Falls scene, Edward Hopper also has a painting called Early Sunday Morning. And that building, or a facsimile of that, is the main part of that painting. So I decided Arthur and I don't go for coffee in the late hours of the night, like in Nighthawk. We do it early in the morning. So Early Sunday Morning. I ended up titling that painting, what did I call it? Early Monday Morning Dayhawks. For
Early Monday morning Dayhawks. It's like so well done. So well done.
Thank you.
So like it's a leap from doing drafting in high school to these photo journals.
Well, I don't know that it's a leap. It's steps along the way. You know, I think if I can go back to a music analogy again,
Please.
Students, I think when you're practicing an instrument from day to day, you barely notice any difference. But
Mm.
somebody who hasn't heard you in a month or two then hears you again and says, "Whoa, you have really gotten better. You have gone by leaps and bounds." Well, the musicians, the artists' perception is not that they came leaps and bounds. It's that they struggled and learned a little bit and failed and did better at this one, but you're almost unaware of your progress. But somebody who hasn't seen it in a while might well describe it as leaps.
Speaking of leaps, like, so you're now, so then you went from realistic to something abstract like this. How?
Um, this is directly a result, and I don't remember his name, of studying the paintings of a famous abstract artist, and then sitting down with my watercolors and sketchbook and saying, I wonder if I could do something in that style. So that's what this is, just practicing in the style of a famous abstract artist. It's not one of his paintings, me trying to copy it. It's me just trying to work with shapes and lines and color in the way that artist did.
This is so inspiring because there's no gist to this. Like it's beautiful. And instead of saying, instead of just having the idea, I wonder what it'd be like to paint a painting like this artist, you actually did it.
That's what you have to do. Just put the paintbrush in the paint, and like Sheila Agee always says, it's just paper. You can throw it out if you want to. This was from the painting class at Augie, when he challenged us to paint something what they called high chroma. Now that's not the actual colors of those objects, but if you look carefully and closely, you can see that even the yellow cup that was sitting there is more than just yellow. It picks up some reflections of light from things beyond it. And if you push those beyond what you really see, it can kind of create an interesting composition of high chroma, high color variation on it. That's not a painting I would probably, try to sell at some art exhibit or whatever. But it was a good practice or study for me to do, because
because what?
Because I tend to just see the color that you first see something, and then assume that the whole object is only that color.
So my next question is, why would you not want to sell this painting?
I think I would, and you're gonna ask me. I don't think it's quite ready yet, and I might repaint it if I really thought that, and I'm not sure I want to. Now, if you ask me exactly what I would do different on another painting, repaint, that would take me some time to think through and some experimentation. But I like parts of it, but not the whole yet.
So this is so interesting because when I look at this, I would say hey, Gary, this is ready. And yet, as the artist, you're like, no, it's not ready. How
Boy,
often do we do that? I wonder to ourselves,
yeah.
convince ourselves that something's not ready when the people around us are like, "Hey, dude, that's ready."
Boy, the more I get into this art stuff, the more I realize um, how hard that is to know when a painting is done. Um, I think after I do this for another 10, 15 years, I might be able to know more easily when a painting is done. But that's that's a question that I still struggle with, and I think most artists do. Um,
Le-
you can
le- le-
overwork a painting and work it like it at one point, and then keep trying to make it better, and in the end, make it worse, especially with watercolor.
I've never even thought about that, but you can overdo a painting, huh?
Yeah, you can.
To everyone watching, let me just show you two more. I mean,
This,
like that to me is amazing.
thank you. That I think is the second or third, I can't remember, painting I did in this class. So that's acrylic again, just a classic old still life. The purpose here was to do most of the painting in analogous colors, the kind of blue green family, but then let it pop with something that is complementary across the color wheel, and let the orange, which is the opposite of blue, um, pop some. So I wanted to come up with a still life where I would have that complementary color pop against its complement, which is the darker blue. So that was part of the purpose in this exercise.
That's so interesting. You're just experimenting, and to me, these are like, wow.
And let's see, what was, or no, yeah, this one, or maybe this was the one that did the complementary, the blue against the orange. But this was I really wanted to try something abstract. I hadn't yet done that little watercolor thing. And there are so many abstract paintings of guitars out there, and I play guitar. Um, so it was challenging and yet kind of fun to move shapes around and colors around and try to find something that is visually appealing. Obviously, a guitar and music, but not quite so obviously just a straightforward guitar. That one is actually hanging temporarily at Dunn Brothers, our watercolor group. It's not watercolor, but it's a water based, so they let me hang it there. At Dunn Brothers,
And Dumb Brothers is a coffee shop in
another
town.
coffee shop. Well, of course. What are there besides coffee shops and breweries? That's all I.
So, as listeners think about maybe trying something new, that but that kind of maybe on the fence about it, and going back and forth, what encouragement or what ideas would you have for them?
You know, um, I was going to mention that I think one of the reasons why in retirement I said I'm going to go really after this art thing rather than some different aspect of music is because it's easier for me to experiment and fail at a discipline that isn't my profession. For me to do something in music, I'd feel like it'd be more tempting to feel like, oh, I got to be like really good right away. And whereas in art, I'm not an artist or hadn't been, or, I didn't spend 44 years teaching art. So if not everything I do turns out great, I don't kick myself about that. It's something new to try out. And I guess it's been a good lesson, and maybe a good lesson for everybody, that if you're going to try something new, maybe try something outside of your window of expertise, because you won't put quite so much pressure on yourself.
Wow. Yeah, that's really interesting. So often can just get kind of, this is what I do. I play music, so why not play more music? But why not try something new
Well,
and be a beginner again? I
yeah.
mean, I hesitate to use that word because your paintings are masterful, but to you it feels like being a beginner again.
And I don't know if I can draw this analogy or not, but Jason, I've always been an admirer of you, impressed, because I know your writing skills, and you're a very good writer. And it even seems to come naturally to you. And one would expect that maybe that alone would be what you would pursue. But no, you have this passion for speaking publicly, which admittedly does not come easily for you, or did not come easily for you to begin with. It's not a God-given natural skill from your birth, and yet you've got this passion to do it, and you take it on with abandon, and have done so well at it.
I didn't think of the comparison at all. Thank you. And to what we were talking about earlier about practicing and drawing, writing does come pretty naturally to me at this point, and I love it. But I also am basically writing every day, most days at least.
Okay. Yeah. Well, that's apparent as well.
I have to ask, are you still playing music at all, or are you moved on to art?
No, I still practice classical guitar quite a bit, classical and folk. I get together quite a bit with Craig Spencer, retired Augie professor, who is also a classical and folk guitarist. And we play duets and sing and perform at nursing homes, and hope to do a little more at restaurants and stuff like that. So I practice guitar, not every day, but almost. I don't play tuba much anymore, or band instruments in general.
You don't just pick up the clarinet for...
Not, I don't. I've got one. I can play it, but I don't pick up the clarinet on.
How about the recorder? Do you spend a lot of time playing the recorder?
The recorder, a little bit, but I bought this new electronic instrument called an electronic wind instrument, EWI, EWI, and it's fingered like a clarinet or saxophone, and you blow into it like a wind instrument, but the the sound is created electronically like you were playing a synthesizer, and you can have
Wow.
it sound like all kinds of different stuff. And it's just kind of fun to grab that instead of a recorder. And I do practice the iwi some.
Wow, that's that's great. And I could talk to you for hours. I mean, we have so many small towns on and on. But but one more question. So I ask all my guests this. When I think of doing my imperfect best, I think of envisioning the best I want for myself in the world, and then when mistakes and challenges come up, instead of forgetting about that best, I try to learn from the mistakes and challenges and keep moving towards the best. What does doing your imperfect best mean to you, Gary Peterson?
Oh, my imperfect best. Um, you know, I've there um I like your idea of embracing failure. I've been as I pursue this art thing, I've been reading and even listening to podcasts of artists talking about
Mm,
their steps, and so many of them say, as hard as it is to do those paintings that are failures,
mm,
those are really the only times you learn.
mm,
If you painted everything perfectly how you wanted, you would not be growing. You wouldn't be learning, advancing. It's pretty much in the failures that you advance. And that's continually a hard lesson to relearn and swallow. But that's my new goal, is to acknowledge that failures are in the long run learning experiences.
failures are in the long run learning experiences. Those are inspiring words to end on. Thank you so much,
You're
my
welcome.
friend, for being here. And well, thanks for a great conversation.
Oh, I loved it. Thank you, Jason.
Me too. Wow. Wow, it's the the I love doing these each week. I'm continually inspired by humanity. The people around us are so interesting, and you who are watching are one of those people who are interesting. So I urge you to really admire and celebrate what other people do. Ask them questions, be interested, but also admire and celebrate and be confident in what you do and what you contribute to the whole. We all contribute different things. If we compare what we contribute, that goes nowhere. But to really cherish what we contribute, it's a great thing. Thanks for tuning in this week. If you're watching this on replay, thanks for watching it on replay. Drop comments, we love them. And next week, tune in for another great guest. Thank you. Bye for now.